President Yoon declared an emergency martial law on December 2, 2024, around 11 p.m. KST, a pivotal moment in South Korea's history unfolded outside the National Assembly building, where crowds gathered and tensions mounted as citizens stood against the imposition of the declaration. This video offers a window into that day, through the eyes of Bastiaan, NOVAsia's editor-in-chief, who witnessed firsthand the scenes, the sounds, and the stories that defined a critical chapter in shaping South Korea's future.
Hi, my name is Bastiaan. I'm a fourth semester student here at the Graduate School of International Studies of Yonsei University. I was vice president of the Study Association last semester, and I'm editor-in-chief of NOVAsia this semester.
So you were at the protests outside the National Assembly after President Yoon's martial law declaration on Tuesday night as an observer. And how did you hear about the protests and what made you head over to the National Assembly at that late hour?
So, I was already in Yeouido actually. I was watching a movie, and I was with 3 other friends. And one of my friends says, "Why is everyone concerned about Korea? Because they're Americans." And I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Everyone's texting me if I'm okay." So I turned on the news and it said, "President Yoon declares martial law." And instinctively, I knew I did not want to be on the streets of Yeouido, next to the parliament. I study Korean studies, you know, we read about it all the time. And the last instances of martial law were not good for ordinary citizens, so to speak. So I told my friends, "Yoon just declared martial law. Yoon is doing a coup d'etat. Grab your shit, we're going out." And my friends were like, "What?" Because we were in these really comfortable cinema seats. It was 12, right? We're all kind of a little drowsy. So I was like, "Grab your stuff. It's a coup d'etat. We're getting out." While I was running down the stairs. And I think that first hour, while we were running across the street to my friend's place, I turned on the live stream of the news. I was trying to assess the situation. Who's on his side? Is the military on his side? What's going on? Running to her place to just reassess the situation and see what's going on. So we came home, turned on the news, and she lives on the 19th floor in Yeouido. I'm watching the live stream. I see how troops are pouring out of their buses. And suddenly I hear helicopters. And I look out the window and there's like 3 Black Hawks that just fly by the apartment. I'm like, oh, I'm glad we were not on the streets. But then, nothing really came. The bridges didn't close down. All the highways kept running. I'm like, this is weird. And simultaneously you could see on the news that people were pouring into front of the parliament. So I was like, I gotta go out there and I gotta take some pictures. I told my friends, I'm going there. And my friends were like, "You're crazy, don't go." I was like, "Well, I'm going. Someone coming with me or not?" So then 2 others came and we ran over. And we were not alone. There were like plenty of other people. There were people on taris, like cycling, coming over, bikes, cars. And the police was frantically trying to set up some sort of road system to prevent people on the road from being run over by all the cars that were pouring in, basically. By the time we came there, we saw the last buses with the soldiers leaving. I think while I was out, the parliament just announced martial law to be over, in the sense that they voted. Helicopter kept circling for a while, I think. But by then already, when we were there, organized protesters were so quick. They had mobilized so quickly. There were people with pickets. All the flags were there. The normal, usual protest organizations had poured in within an hour and a half. So there was music, there were people giving speeches. All the while the police blocked off the entire front of the parliament. And that remained, I think, for the entire night. Yeah.
So what were some of the slogans or signs or chants that you've observed?
I think they switched, because at first it was against the martial law, like repeal the martial law. And then it quickly changed into Yoon step down, Yoon should be investigated, Yoon should be impeached. And then there were general slogans that they've been using in anti-presidential protest for a while, which is that him and his wife should be investigated for corruption. So I also heard that one. Yeah.
And so as an observer, how did the crowd dynamics of the people protesting change throughout the night from when you first were there and when you left?
It became more festive. I think when I first came, the vibe was like still really tense. But soldiers left, and then the helicopters left, and then it was just the police, and then it's just like, oh well, this is just an ordinary protest now. So then the speakers came out, and people were like openly mocking the president, singing protest songs. Yeah, kind of festive. A lot of like nervous energy first, and then it slowly switched into positive. Okay, we need to fight for this democracy, and we're gonna have some fun while we're doing it.
Were there any interactions between the protesters and the authorities, and how did that go?
Oh yeah, definitely. I saw in the news. Was quite heavy-handed at the front gate of the parliament. Soldiers were trying to get in. Civilians, camera people, and parliamentary staff were trying to prevent that. Outside, same, because the gates were barricaded by the police. So you had MPs and civilians trying to help the MPs to get in, so they're like helping them over the wall, scale the wall and stuff. Police trying to prevent that. And after the police stayed, there was less real reason to engage with the police, because I guess the parliament voted the army down. We don't have to barge into a parliament for no reason. But at some point the police did organize a normal protest barricade, a wall of policemen with riot shields. Not everyone was happy with that, so I saw some protest organizers trying to talk with the police people on how to manage this. Then in the back I saw a motorcyclist who wanted to go, and he was blocked by the police, and he didn't like that he was blocked, so got shouty, was almost arrested. A bunch of camera people around it who were like, oh, we got to film this. But yeah, generally peaceful, I'd say. The police was confused, obviously. It took a while for them to also really decide on what to do, besides just, I guess, we're blockading the parliament here.
So what stood out to you the most about the way the events unfolded?
When I came there were people who climbed on top of the wall, of the outer wall of the parliament. You see the police barricade, and people climbed over it and stood on the wall, wearing a cape of the Korean flag. And it really reminded me of this picture of this guy running around with a tegeki during the protests in 1987. It really showed, I think, how people felt it was their civil duty as citizens of the state to fight against the martial law. They used the symbolism of the flag and the scaling of the police barricade and standing there on top of the wall while there were Black Hawks circling in the air. I think that is a very powerful statement. That's one of the moments. I think the other moment is when this campaign rally car arrived. I mean, we made the video, right? In Korea during campaign seasons, they have these cars with like LED screens and music and people dancing on them. So there was one guy who pulled up in one of them and turned on this satirical music mocking President Yoon while he was wearing this sumo suit you wear for Halloween with like you blow it up with air inside it, and he put up a printed mask of Yoon and like a caricature, and he was dancing on it. I think that really showed how far people are willing to go to make a statement in a very different way than I think what I'm used to in the West, where people would get violent. And people did not want to get violent here. But when it was necessary, they were willing to give their lives.
So how long were you there for, and when did you see people start leaving to go home?
So people were coming in and off. I think already when I got there around 2, there were already people leaving. But people were like, yeah, I have to go to work tomorrow. I heard literally people say, they're like, oh my god, I'm going to go to work tomorrow. And then the person next to me like, will there be work? I'm like, oh, you're right. I think there were about 1,000 people in total, fluctuating. I went home between 3 and 4. Don't remember exactly when. As by then it was clear, okay, the president is not going to make a statement. It seemed like he accepted, because he didn't take any further actions, and it had been like 2 hours, so by then it was like, okay, well, if no more military is going to come in now, then it probably is not going to come in the next few hours, so then I went home. With the protesters, I think didn't seem like the organized protesters were going to go home soon. They were still waving their flags and giving speeches.
Have you seen any other related protests after this one?
Yeah, immediately the day after, there were protesters at Gwanghwamun, both for and against Yoon, and that was interesting. There was a big difference in the population, I'd say. The pro-Yoon camp was significantly older, the waving American and Korean flags. So that all points to me that there are people who believe in America as savior of Korea, which probably related to their belief in the Korean War and the narrative that Korea had to be saved from the communists from the north and that America was our savior, and that all connects then to the dictatorships. It justifies Lee Seung-man. Park Chung-hee is justified because he economically developed their country, and that's when most of the martial laws were imposed. So I can see how that population might think that martial law is a tool to be used to pacify the people if needed for the prosperity of the people. I think that's how they think about the martial law, and that President Yoon is justified to impose it right now because there are anti-communist element in the government in their eyes.
That experience of seeing those protests, how is that experience a little different from the one that you were at outside the parliament the day before?
There was a difference in skill. The Gwanghwamun candlelight vigil was so well organized. There's an entire protest industry here, and I've read about it, I heard about it, but seeing that in motion was quite fascinating. There were posters, there were newspapers printed, there were the amount of cabling and camera work that was there that they had established within half a day. All the candles, people were giving out candles. I'm like, where do you get these from? Where's this coming from? People were giving out coffee. There was a coffee booth. Volunteers from different organizations. And the police was there ready. They had barricaded the entire road with police buses and their riot shields. And same way on the other side, the pro-Yoon camp. Giant TV screen ones hung up, speakers, people were giving out Korean and American flags. There's a big protest industry, one that was able to really quickly organize itself already the night before, but I think the full scale was visible the day after.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. Also, they went home by 9. It's
like a set schedule.
Yeah, it's a set schedule. They came there, they sat down, and like, okay, it's 9 o'clock, guys. We're going home. See you guys tomorrow. Remember, tomorrow's at 6. What time? 6. What time? 6. See you guys tomorrow. Yeah, it's fascinating to see.
So, is there anything about the protest that you think might be misunderstood by others looking back on these events?
Protesting in itself, it's a cultural phenomenon. The way we protest, who protests, who's willing to go out there and spend their time on the street. And Koreans are willing to do that in a significant number that it makes an impact, right? Of course, there are always peoples in every society that are radical enough to go on the street and protest. And in Korea, it's not a radical thing. I think it was, but then the pressure builds in society. But the pressure needed to build up that momentum in Korea is significantly lower than in other societies. There were people willing to come out and cycle all the way to the parliament at 1 a.m. does say something about how low the threshold is for people to go out on the street and protest. And then it all goes peacefully. All the guys there protesting, they've all been in the military themselves, right? If they wanted it to turn violent, they probably could. They could organize themselves in a violent way, but they don't. They instead use their organizational skills to motivate the people to come out, make it as smooth as an experience as possible, giving out coffee, singing songs, and peacefully going home by 9, you know? It becomes a social activity in a way, ingrained in the fabric of society, and I think that is an interesting experience.